like that music. I'm not even gonna lie, when the guitar starts coming in and the little beats. Anyways, I'm Marte. Welcome to Woke Autopsy, episode 7, the podcast where we don't just critique the madness, we dissect it, organ by organ, until the truth spills out. Every week, we take a scalpel to the sacred cows of woke culture, from cancel campaigns and identity obsessions to the slow strangulation of art, faith, and free expression. No safe spaces, no trigger warnings, just cold hard examination, because some ideas deserve a proper burial.
Yes, indeed. Tonight, we are going full forensic on Hollywood's latest battleground, redemption, gang life, and a 4th century saint who refuses to stay buried. Joining us is director Yelena Popovic, the fearless Serbian-American filmmaker behind Man of God, and now the explosive new crime drama Moses the Black, a raw, unapologetic story that weaves Chicago's West Side gang violence with the ancient tale of St. Moses the Black, a reformed bandit turned desert father. This isn't your typical preachy faith flick. It's greedy, R-rated, and backed by none other than 50 Cent himself.
That's right, Vic. 50 Cent himself. Here's where it gets interesting for the autopsy table. Whispers of suppression, industry pushback, and the fight to get a film about real transformation made in today's Hollywood. Yelena Popovic, welcome to Woke Autopsy. We're glad to have you aboard, and we appreciate your time and presence being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true pleasure. Thank you.
We would be remiss if we didn't bring out our other illustrious guests too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your I didn't mean to interrupt your intro here, but let's go ahead and roll this out because there's plenty more. There's also 2 other sets of guests that we have too, because we have a full panel today, and let's introduce the remaining guests as well too. Dang, both of you make banger introductions together, by the way.
Yeah.
You guys together, crime fighting duo now. All of a sudden. Yeah, it was pretty good. But also, welcome to Woke Autopsy. We're not just dissecting the disease. We're meeting the surgeons, building the antidote. Joining us are the co-founders of Logo Cinema, the world's first Orthodox Christian streaming platform. I present Andrew Stokich, first of all, CEO and veteran filmmaker who founded Horizon Pictures over a decade ago, has spent years crafting stories of faith, virtue, and the hero's journey. From award-winning shorts to gritty, unapologetic, orthodox tales. Next, Zach Delaney, Chief Creative Officer, a passionate storyteller, and a recent convert whose love for true sacrifice and authentic visual narrative led him to birth this bold new platform. Together, they're both creating a safe, family-friendly home for film, series, and documentaries that refuse to water down the ancient faith, bringing beauty, redemption, and the incarnate Logos straight to your screen in a sea of Netflix nihilism. Gentlemen, welcome to the Orthodox table, Autopsy table. Next, lastly, from the blood-soaked streets of Chicago's West Side to the front lines of saving young men from gang life, meet Reginald Akeem Berry Sr., also known as Akeem, founder of Saving Our Sons, real-life warrior, community leader, and executive producer of Moses the Black. Reginald and all of you, welcome to the Autopsy table.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yep, happy to be here.
Yeah, so I have a plethora of questions here, but before we get to these questions, I need to do a rollout real quick because I know I'm doing a lot of videos and things like this. It's very entertaining. This is very near and dear to my heart already because the intertwined people that are meeting today. we have a solution, which is an anecdote, and we also have somebody that presented a problem in the industry now. Let's roll this out.
Well, you're free now. What's stopping you from getting out?
My feet is my feet.
I see Moses the Black,
The saint who was once a gang member.
he was a gangster.
Oh yeah.
The most feared gangster in the land of Egypt at that time.
He who lives by the sword shall die by the sword.
Good luck with that. Everybody know I ain't no rat. If you're gonna choose a battle, tough guy, choose the right one.
So this movie, Moses the Black, got pulled out of theaters shortly after its January 30th, 2026 theatrical release. Producers, including 50 Cent, alleged that the film was being suppressed. Okay.
You got some disturbing news about this movie?
Yeah, listen, let me tell you something.
Let him. I think
The reality of the fact is, the powers that be are trying to suppress this movie as we speak. They pulled the movie 2 days before its opening date. Out of sight.
They
was
pulled it 2 days before the release.
Absolutely.
Never unheard of.
Absolutely.
In
The
a lot of
thing is,
unheard of, and especially at inner cities where people are hurting and they want to see this film.
That we
But
made
people
the
don't
movie
want this.
for. We
Yeah.
made the movie for the community.
And even people that bought up theaters were refunded.
What?
Yes. Very much so.
People bought out whole theaters to see the film and they refunded them. That doesn't even make sense. People bought out whole theaters to see the film and they refunded them. That doesn't even make sense.
Damn. So money don't even make sense. I mean, box office don't even, that don't matter no more.
Listen,
That's crazy. That's the
Yeah,
goal.
but they cry how they care about the community, right?
This is crazy. This is
Wow,
crazy.
yeah.
So
That's
I was talking about this before we got from being backstage with Andrew, and they were kind of blown away too. Yelena, I've never heard of this before. I have questions like what brought you to the story and all this. But since that was rolled out, I'm changing my stance on this, and I'm just going to ask you a question. I've never heard of this before. Have you seen this before? Is this normal for the industry, for them to block films and them to refund whole pre-bought tickets to movies?
Well,
Just refunding people?
Listen, I've never heard about it. Usually, even if the films, as we all know, not every film does very well theatrically. That's like a different kind of industry. But even regardless of what happens, they honor the commitment. They at least let the film run for a week, and if it doesn't work out, they put another film in. They don't mess with the release prior to opening weekend. That's just not normal at all.
Yeah, it sounds highly unusual. I mean, when I heard this, it's the first. Vic, have you heard of this before? Of them doing this, of pre-bought theaters that were already supposed to be packed, and then the theaters refunding everybody their tickets? Vic, have you heard of this before?
No, I have never heard of that at all. It's really weird. Really weird.
Yeah, that's really weird. Go ahead, Yelena.
Akeem, I would like Akeem because he was in Chicago and he was really excited. Please, if you can point out to this. I mean, they were excited to go to AMC, especially at Cicero. Am I right, Akeem?
Absolutely. There are AMC theaters that are in the surrounding area of what we call the hood. And so again, I had friends, family who had, committed to actually renting out the theater. And the one in Cicero, they actually refunded the money, claiming that there weren't enough advance sales. And if I might put it on record, I'm 63 years young and I'm a movie buff. I've never, not even Marvel movies, I've never bought advance tickets to a movie, because something might come up. When I go to the movies, I show up at the and I pay right there and I go in. But as far as advance tickets, I've never bought an advance ticket in my life.
Yeah, I have a question. So either Akeem or Yelena, real quick, can you walk us through what that looked like during the development, funding, or distribution? What did that look like? Was there any problems with that?
Well, I think this is like an interesting story. All in all, I mean, I believe providentially led to Akeem. Because when I decided to tell, I originally wanted to tell a story in the 4th century, and I talked about it many times. And I just said also, not to get too long about it, so, right now, but when it came to me, it was an island of Evia at the monastery that I had to tell a story. I saw a few scenes kind of flash in front of my eyes of a gangster in Chicago, and I realized I had to go that route. And I realized that that was a great idea, but then I found myself in a predicament, like, what do I know about the gang world in Chicago? I knew that I had to hopefully meet people that would be able to help me with developing the story of the gang life, of the story of Malik in our case, because in order for the story of St. Moses, I believe, to penetrate truthfully to the inner cities and places where I think this film is really valuable, I thought the story had to be real. People of Chicago had to watch this and feel that this was told truthfully, not somebody coming from Hollywood and making their own story about somebody. I didn't want to do that. So one of our investors, Alex Pisios, had mentioned once the gentleman, Reginald Akeem Berry, Sr., he called him Akeem, and he told me about him. And when I heard, this is weird, when I heard that name, I mean, and I haven't met Akeem yet, I kind of knew that this was the person. And I've asked Alex, I'm like, the gentleman you just mentioned, can you please put me in touch with him? So that was the first time we saw each other. And then second time when I saw him, I was like, can you please remember the gentleman you mentioned? So that's when he called Akeem on the spot. And that's when Akeem and I had a meeting. And the rest was history. I mean, he really, Akeem can speak for himself, but he really, I believe, was moved by the story of St. Moses the Black. And he really, without him, I wouldn't be able to tell the story the way I did. Yeah, I'm really grateful. And that's how the whole thing started. And I don't think anybody really at that point, everything was like kind of like with Man of God. I mean, the whole thing was like a miracle. I must say that. And also after Akeem decided to help me, he watched Man of God, and I believe he really liked the movie, and that was also another reason that he believed in this project. But I think everything was sort of under the radar because, I think if somebody got a whiff of this and what this was really about, maybe we would have been suppressed earlier. But by the providence of God, we made it as far as the premiere, and the film was already made, and it was promoted in the theaters. And I think after the premiere in Los Angeles and Chicago, especially, Akeem, you remember I explicitly talked about St. Moses the Black to some of your pastors. I mean, I publicly stated that he's a 4th century saint, that there are saints from Egypt, which are African saints that people in the West don't even know about, and that the Christianity was basically preserved thanks to the African saints of land of Egypt. And I think maybe there are a lot of layers to this. And after that, something happened. Everybody was excited for the release date, and I get a phone call from Akeem saying, Yelena, I was going to take everybody to AMC. What's going on? They're not playing it there. This was like 2-3 days before the release, and that's what happened.
So, Akeem, I want to hear from your words because I think it's very compelling because you were the eyes on the ground, boots on the ground when it comes to like the experience. What was it like when you were like anxious to see this? What happened, which she was talking about from your experience in your own words, when you went to go want to see the film? How did this play out?
Well, again, as Yelena alluded to, this was my first experience with making a big movie like this. And I was really touched by the way Yelena put the script together after us having many, many nights of discussion and sharing aspects of my life. again, I was basically knocked off my feet when I found out that my sister, and not only here but in North Carolina, they had rented out the whole theater, and everybody was excited for the January 30th debut. And the day before, they contacted my sister and told her essentially that they was refunding her money. That the film wouldn't be played. So again, same thing here in Chicago. Everybody was excited about Chicago being seen on the big screen. And again, cats breaking my phone down. We can't find the movie. We can't find the movie. I said, that's crazy. What you mean you can't find the movie? It's all my ups. You know what I'm saying? This got to be a top flight movie. And again, when we called and made the inquiry, they had pulled the movie. And I was dumbfounded. You know what I'm saying? To recognize that it's, like I say, cream, cash rules everything around me. I'm thinking this is about the money. However, when the money was in their hand, they kicked it back. So it was something that was a little more diabolical, I say, afoot about this particular film. First and foremost, let me say this, that we didn't go the Hollywood route. Hollywood didn't have to greenlight this movie. Yelena, her blood, sweat, and tears, she raised the money, you understand, to create this film. She was the one that was, I guess, pressing about Hollywood actors, but she was determined to have a Chicago theme, Chicago actors. And again, I compliment her for that. And so I believe it was like AMC wanted to smack us in the face to show us that they was the powers that be. Despite us making the movie, bringing it to the big screen, they say, no, we're not going to let you see it.
Wow, that's crazy. And also your audio is performing nice because I hear the smoke detector out loud. But anyways, back to this. I do have a couple questions right now. Was it resistance from Hollywood gatekeepers, distributors, or cultural pressure? Do you think it was? Where was this coming from, maybe?
It came from above. That's what we're told. Whatever that above means, we will never know, right? So,
wow, how ominous!
Yeah, but there is above, and then there is above, right? So I'm not worried,
Maybe somebody by the name of Stein or Witz, maybe their last name. But anyways, let me stop. Okay.
Get out.
There's this big conspiracy theory that the Jays are controlling Hollywood and all this and suppressing things. I'm not going to dive into that. We're just going to go into just the facts right now. But if you're saying it came from above and we're just hearing these murmurs on the ground, do you think that this could possibly happen to your next project or another Orthodox project that comes out?
Well, of course, I'm just thinking, what was it about this film? Obviously, I can think of few things. No, they can listen. People, the owners of theaters, they can do whatever they want. That's it's not ethical what they did, but ultimately they can do it. Now there was another thing happening at the time. There was a documentary about Melania that came out that they were actually paying people to go and see.
Wow.
So that could have been also adding to the suppression story, but we don't know exactly. We were never given exact explanation, and it's just for me, it was obviously heartbreaking. I just we worked very hard on this, and I actually, I can say this, that Akeem knows this, that not only that I've wanted to honor St. Moses the Black, but I really wanted to honor the community, Akeem and everybody else that have showed so much love and respect, and I was really excited about this. So and that's what gave me strength, apart from everything else, to continue, because this wasn't easy. We had so many roadblocks, even trying to make this. But as you can see, somehow we've gotten great people on board, and God was always there for us. It was always the last moment. It's always the case, because I think the Lord always tests our faith. So you kind of have to keep your head up and show that you really believe, before, not to say that, a few days before principal photography, I must say that we received the remaining sum of money. It wasn't a small amount. So you can just imagine what kind of pressure, we were all under. But clearly, we got a green light from above to do this. But I think there are a couple of reasons. I think first of all, I mean, this is something that people talk about, and some people think it's conspiracy theory, and Akeem can talk about this in more detail than I can. I've just heard about it, but that people don't want, especially in inner cities, they don't want stories of redemption. They don't want stories where people will say, well, let me, think about what I'm doing. Maybe I shouldn't, go down this path. I should go down this path. I want to live past 20. I don't want to be in prison all my life. I want to be there with my family. And I think this is apart from bringing Christ and Jesus Christ to the community, which they already have it. That's the community. All it has is their faith. And I've seen that. I mean, Akeem is the man of God himself, so and that's what gave me so much strength. But there's something there. I feel like they would like to pull that piece out of the community if they could. So this film is like a huge threat because of that. And that's my opinion. But please, Akeem, if you want to support me or
absolutely. I would like to piggyback on that because again, I basically lived this story. I lived the story of Moses the Black, Malik, who was the lead character by Omar Epps. Again, been born and raised on the west side of Chicago. I was a prodigy, or I say a product of my community. I come from a Baptist household. My father was a Baptist minister. I have 9 siblings, and we went to church 8 days out of the week, And so again, I know about faith. I know about the various choices that you have in life. And so as we mentioned in the movie, my elder brothers, they literally ran to the military, to get from under my father's yoke about, church 8 days a week. And so I woke up one morning and found myself being the big brother in my household. But when I stepped beyond the barriers of my household, I had to deal with the streets, the elements from the streets. And so again, almost being impoverished in my younger years, I had a choice to make when I came out of my house. I had to be jumped on and humiliated in the streets so I can become a part of the so-called brotherhood, and that was an extension of my family. And so again, I lived through the 70s and the 80s here in Chicago when marijuana was illegal and, it had illicit activity. But we started brotherhoods, Folk on the Hustlers, Souls, GDs. These are literally organizations that couldn't be a part of the Black Panther, couldn't be a part of the civil rights movement. And unfortunately, when they dropped drugs in our community, these organizations became perverted. Guys start living about their brotherhood and start thinking about greed and assets. And so again, unfortunately, I was found guilty of a 9-1, which is a murder, sentenced to 33 years, served 18 years. My last 8 was in Illinois' only super maximum prison. And so having been emancipated in 2006, I had changed my mind, but the judge hadn't changed my time. And so again, I had to put my boots to the streets to let guys know, okay, I've risen through the ranks in this measure, and we're going to do something different. We're going to take it back to the natural origins, by trying to help the community and create jobs and etc. And so again, Yelena had a third eye. She penned it, she wrote this script, and then again, the evidence is the film itself. And the powers that be, as she mentioned, suppressed it basically because they don't want a success story. They don't want a redemption story. They want you to glamorize selling drugs. They want you to glamorize shooting each other in the head. And one underlying theme that was consistent in this movie, that if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. And not only would you lose your life, but you lose your soul. And that's what Yelena brought to the film. You had a decision to make. You know what I'm saying? Either you can stay with this illicit activity or you can change your life, honor God, and do things positively. And
that's very compelling. It's very compelling. But one thing you said was the judge didn't change my time, but I changed my mind. So I want to, speaking of time, I do want to bring in my fellow Orthodox brothers from Logo Cinema into the conversation, but I want to do this properly. Let's begin.
Cinematography comes from the Greek word kinema, or movement, and graphine, to write, literally meaning writing with movement.
For more than a century, cinema has written stories with light, with sound, with motion. But the question remains, what are these stories pointing toward?
Images are never neutral. They can degrade the soul or they can sanctify it. Christian icons weren't simply painted, they were written.
Written with color and form to reveal something eternal. Icons are written with paint. Cinema is written with light.
Today, cinema has become the most powerful image maker in the world, but something is missing.
Cinema has forgotten the logos. In Greek, logos means word, reason, meaning. The logos gives creation order. It gives stories purpose.
So, without the logos, cinema just becomes noise.
Logos cinema. Stories written in movement, guided by meaning. Because the greatest stories were always meant to point to something greater.
So I want to roll out my brothers from Logo Cinema. I think that, they're the greatest when it comes to this because I'm thinking about the future. And when we think about this, I would like to introduce to my audience my brothers from Logo Cinema, Andrew and Zach, by the way. Also, Akeem, I appreciate you. I want to point out to the audience here, your story of being convicted and then serving time and then the statement you made, I changed my mind, but the judge couldn't change my time. Like, all of this needs to be heard. And I think that we can't move forward unless we have a cause, right? And maybe something that's relational to this and moving forward with a purpose. And here, inserting themselves into this chat, we have Logo Cinema. Andrew, Zach, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And, I kind of want to go back to the previous part of the conversation here. I actually had been, Yelena, watching the whole process of Moses the Black. When the murder of George Floyd happened, I was inspired to actually write something about it. When I was at my current day job, I worked for Apple, and some reason during those talks after that had happened, we had these meetings within internal at Apple, and people turned on Christians for some reason. I don't know how we even got there, but they did. And I was like, they don't understand that, like you mentioned, like the Ethiopian saints, the Egyptian saints from Africa preserved Christianity. And I was like, I'm going to write a story about Moses the Black. So I had started working on it, and then I saw on your website that you had started production. I was like, oh, well, I'll table that because she's going to get to it way before I'll get to it. And when I saw that it was going to take place in present-day Chicago, I was like, this is pertinent to this time. Like, this is exactly the way this story needs to be told. And taking the hagiography of the saints and imposing it in the 21st century is going to connect those dots for people who have no idea that like Christian history goes far beyond what we know here in the West. And I think us as Orthodox Christians here in the West, we need to start telling those stories even more so.
Thank you. I mean, that sounds, I agree with you. And I think that it's going to come out, but we need to do some work.
We do. Yeah.
So just let me say this. Yelena not only created a script and a film, but she also gave a master class. I consider myself a history buff, but I was ignorant to the fact of how the Ethiopians or the Africans had a hand in preserving the holy epistles as they once were. And again, my father being a Baptist minister, I came up in the storefront church. And everything in the church was whitewashed. You saw the little angels with their little gowns on floating around. You saw the blue eyes and the blonde hair. And again, as I went through my maturation period, that same mindset drove me to Islam because I thought there was no connections to the African diaspora. And so again, the Muslim seems more of my culture. I was fighting against the European mindset or European story. And so when Yelena actually came on the set and was teaching us about these African ancestors of ours, again, everybody became attentive, from the so-called rappers who became thespians. I mean, again, all of us was enlightened by the fact that she had a history to add to this story that made us seem more akin to it. And so, again, I'd like to thank her, and I thank the Orthodox Church, for being opening and inviting to people like myself.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on board and talking about your story. I think it's not only a monumental thing that needs to be told over, I think throughout history, this story has been told, but in so many different ways. Your story is unique to yourself, just like the St. Moses the Black. Matter of fact, Yelena, I did bring this so I could show it to you. Andrew's dad actually gifted me this at my chrismation. It's St. Moses the Black. It's an icon, and he's my patron saint. So as soon as I reached out to you, and you responded really fast, and I was like, oh, yes, I can be able to talk about this to somebody and talk about this, because I was privy to the silencing of this film. And when this happened, I didn't think it was as big as it is, because the more people I started talking to, the more they were like, oh, there's a movie about St. Moses the Black that's coming out. And they didn't know about this. If 50 Cent is producing something, everybody knows about it. There's not one person that doesn't know about the next mixtape that's coming out, the next movie that's coming out. All of this. I even have a friend named Will. His name is 40XL. He's working on an HBO special or a movie paid in full series from 50 Cent. Everybody knows about that. But when I talk about St. Moses the Black, they were like, what? I'm like, wait, hold on. There's a project 50 Cent is working on that nobody knows about, because they know about even the minutia, the little things, so that this suppression is happening right now needs to be talked about. That is why I wanted you on board with the Woke Autopsy podcast. And that's why I wanted you to especially meet the gentlemen of Logo Cinema, because the reason why they're on board is I'm going to let them tell their story, because I have a few questions for them. I do want to start off saying, Andrew, I do believe that you are an anecdote. Correct me if I'm wrong. You and Zach are anecdotes to this solution, because Yelena has presented a problem out there. I presented media showing that people are frustrated about this and they don't even know about this. And even through Akeem's story, they got pulled from theaters on the Breakfast Club. All of this. Do you believe that you have an anecdote to this issue that's happening in the industry, Andrew and Zach?
Absolutely. And we've faced similar struggles, and I want Andrew to talk about kind of the birth of Logo Cinema, because we have felt the same suppression and lack of support and antagonism from the industry, right? And just a little anecdote about myself as a convert. Growing up, I grew up in a very secular household. And I didn't convert to Christianity, to Orthodoxy, until 4 years ago. And within that time span before then, I totally discounted Christianity because of what I was exposed to. The movies that were allowed to come out, the stories that were allowed to come out, what I was exposed to. I immediately discounted it for so long because it felt fake. It didn't feel real. It didn't have that realness that was captured so well in St. Moses the Black, which is at the core of what we want to cultivate at Logo Cinema, and is sorely missing, obviously, in the established industry and what people are being exposed to already. So I bring a unique perspective as a convert coming into it, because I know what it's like on the other side. I know what it's like outside of the scope and the deep reaches that Orthodoxy has and the rich history that it has. I know what it's like to come into it and to be an outsider. So movies like Saint Moses the Black, told in a modern day without compromising the sanctity of that individual who was a real historic person, was beautiful. And it was films like that that eventually planted seeds, which is the most important thing. It's the beautiful evangelic effort that you can do through filmmaking to plant a seed that eventually led me to my conversion. Just wanted to say that little anecdote.
Yeah,
quick,
no, it's actually a perfect segue. So I'm actually a cradle Orthodox, born into it. And so like growing up in America in particular, most of my life, Orthodoxy was unknown, and like it was, oh, you're the weird Catholic guy, but you're not Catholic, and I have to try to explain it at a young age. But I started making films at the age of 12, really bad short films, as a kid can do, but like that was my passion. But I knew I never wanted to necessarily go into Hollywood. Just something always felt a little off. And that I felt like it wouldn't be good for my salvation. And so I didn't know what to do with that, but out of college, ended up forming my own little production studio here in Phoenix, Arizona, which ends up being a lot of events. We do a lot of events. We did a lot of music videos and stuff of that nature. But we always wanted to go further and do narrative work. And when I was working on the story I kind of talked about in the very beginning, where I started working on a Moses the Black and tabled it, I had one of my friends who's a director in New York. He's like, who's going to produce this? And I would say that was about 4 years ago when he asked that question. I was like, it's a great question. I don't know who is, and an investor is going to ask that question. Where is this going to go? How is it going to get out there? And I can't answer it. So ultimately ended up tabling that. And fast forward to 2 years ago, Zach and I had the opportunity, actually with the guest you had, Mark Selbach, to work on a product that was potentially going to go onto Discovery Channel. And it was also about helping people. There was no Christian themes in the show at all. It was based around a business out here in Phoenix that helped former felons and veterans reintegrate back into society. And they would put them through equine therapy, so they would learn to take care of a horse and learn what emotions they were feeling. And then they would also put them into learning hard skills. And in this case, they were big into race cars. So we called the show Horsepower. And we got all the way to the board of Discovery, and they came back with notes saying, the mental health aspect, it's too controversial. Nix that whole thing, and maybe we can talk.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I was like, wait, that makes no sense to me at all, because Hollywood talks about mental health, and here we are, like, this is great TV, right? Like, you have people who have had a hard life, either like on the streets or through going overseas and fighting wars and trying to make themselves better. And it was perfect, like audience-wise. It was like, the women will want to come and watch the show for the horses and learning, like these guys learning how to ride horses, and the men are going to see the race cars. It's perfect. And then you have the drama of people learning to be better. So ultimately that show never came to existence. And I came home that night after that, essentially that meeting, and my wife and I sat down and we watched Man of God. It was probably like the 4th or 5th time we had watched it. And I have to give you some credit here. You helped us get to where we are in starting this without knowing it. Because I love history, I love research. And so I started just reading through what it was like to get Man of God produced and get it out there. And like how even with Man of God, you had to go through and get the theaters to get them to show it. And I was like, wait a second here. Like, this is a great film. And a lot of people love it, not just the Orthodox, but other people who aren't Orthodox love it. And I said, I think this is a distribution problem. I don't think this is a story problem anymore. Just based off of what I just had a conversation about, and then seeing this, there needs to be someone who can distribute it. And I said, there has to be an Orthodox streaming service somewhere. And I went and started looking online, couldn't find anything. And so I called Zach and I was like, so this is weird. This is going to be a shift for us. I was like, it's still in film, but we're going to approach this from a different angle. what if we started a streaming platform? And he goes, okay, how do we do that? I was like, well, I don't know.
Laughed.
I
laughed.
Yeah, you did. I was like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And so I knew I could throw a rock from my time at Apple and hit a developer. I was like, that won't be the hard part. We need to figure out how do you support this on the back end and figure out all of that. And luckily, I was blessed. My father designs data networks for the Fortune 100, and so he got me in touch with a lot of the server providers, and we were able to crack that piece that essentially, like, how much does this cost to run efficiently, and then also put it at the same level as, say, Netflix or Amazon, what everyone expects when they sign up for a service like that. And so we ended up getting all the way to starting to pitch to investors in the early fall. And one gentleman in particular who helped build the church I attended growing up, he is a mentor to me. And so I pitched him the idea, and he's like, this is great. It would be great if you had hard data. And I said, well, let's just put it out there and see how it does. And within like 3 weeks, we went from like 0 followers to almost 2,000 followers. And we weren't ready yet. We weren't ready for that type of reception because we were like, how do we get the app deployed then? So we ended up pumping the brakes. That would have been around December. And we figured out all the rest of the legal framework of the business and like how this is all going to work. And now we're looking at April on Pascha, or Orthodox Easter. We'll be launching Logos.
Wow.
That is awesome. Awesome.
Congratulations.
There's a lot of questions that I have, especially for Zach and Andrew. Perfect segue, by the way. You guys, it's almost like you guys have done this before. I do have a question. Little small anecdote I'd like to put in. It's a very small world, Yelena. Turns out that Andrew's father is my father. He's my godfather. So it's a really small world out here. So I'm just going to point that out to you. Not to dox myself too much, but Andrew, specifically, I'll ask you a question. I'll ask a question. Your journey from consumer we'll even ask this question. You've been in film production for over a decade, founding Horizon Pictures back in 2013, working on Faith and the award-winning short Nameless. What was the moment you realized mainstream Hollywood wasn't enough and that something specifically Orthodox was missing for you?
I would say it would have been that seed was planted 4 years ago when the director asked me where it was going to go, and I said, "Well, I'm not in Hollywood, so I don't have the connections to really make that." But at the same time, I was like, I don't foresee any of the major studios picking up this project. It doesn't fit what they're wanting to do right now. So I would say the seed was planted, and then it started to really grow 2 years ago when we had that happen with the Discovery Channel. And that's when that became a realization. Prior to that, the short films that we had done throughout college and post-college, it was more of just wanting to tell a good story. I don't produce a ton of films because I want it to be like, I analyze every film and say, is this a story that needs to be told right now? And I'll even get through writing something and then just stop and be like, this was a cool idea. I got it out of my head, but this does not need to be filmed. It doesn't need to actually be made. So there was like a 10-year period where I didn't produce anything, and it wouldn't have been until, like, in terms of narrative, I should say, like commercials and all that. I don't necessarily count that. Totally separate type of world, in my opinion. But it would be 2 years ago is when I would say it fully developed.
So, wow, that's a lot. You basically answered my question. Even though you answered it before, you kind of just fleshed it out a little bit more. Back to Yelena, I have a question. Then I'm going to go to Akeem. I have to ask you a really pivotal question that I'm just anxious to find the answer to. Yelena, the project started without major names or big money, and you've talked about having to fight to keep it alive long before 50 Cent and others came aboard. What specific obstacles did you face, and how did the faith element or the film's unfiltered take on black crime and personal responsibility play into any pushback that you can comment on?
While I was developing the film?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, the obstacles were just the original obstacle is the financial. How do you raise money for something like this? And we managed, I believe, by the grace of God, to do that. There were I did not know. I mean, we told our investors that obviously, in order to get it out there theatrically, which everybody knows, you need to get the names attached. Otherwise, you cannot get a theatrical distribution. I mean, even nowadays, even big names do not get theatrical distribution. It was a miracle that our distributor agreed to give us a theatrical distribution, because they played Man of God on 800 screens. Just, it was an event release, so we knew them previously. So I think that was a little bit of a miracle there that happened, and they had good results with that. So they were excited about it. So distributor themselves, they are not the ones to blame for this. It was the owners of the theaters that's what I said, that later when the film was made, that made problem about everything that you're talking about now, the pushback. So we managed to get, but what's interesting, let me just add one more thing here. You talk about when 50 does something everybody knows, right? Well, we had 50 heavily promoting this. We had Wiz Khalifa promoting this heavily. And I just found out, because being a little bit naive to the whole process, we just recently found out that actually we had 40 million impressions. So the movie was suppressed even before it came out. Like, how come nobody knows about it?
Wow.
So this is what just came out. Like Akeem, you didn't know this, but we just speaking to one of PRs, the lady who we wanted to help us out with getting it out to the African American community and the pastors. She said, "Well, excuse me, how many impressions did you have?" She said, "Well, you were suppressed way before." So so that's something that's actually incredible about this. That
what
50 was promoting this heavily. Now Akeem is laughing because he's like, "Well, I get it at this point," but
this is crazy.
The message was cut before, so it's incredible that people don't know about it after so much promotion and 50 posting about it and putting it on his story and posting icons of St. Moses, and during the filming of St. Moses, coming to the set for 2-3 days, promoting it again, coming to the premiere. So just, yes, this was meta, right? It was already heavily suppressed, and just hearing what Chris, what everybody was talking about, the Discovery Channel piece that was suppressed, and again, that did not have any Christian message, but it was just simply showing that people, deserve to live. They can have second chance in life. Good life is available for everybody. There is such thing as redemption and change. That was not acceptable. I mean, can you imagine that? So when you put all of that together, things that we kind of know, they're, it's kind of it's obviously disappointing, but it's disturbing as well to see stuff like that.
I want to kind of open up the floor a little bit so that way Logo Cinema, and Yelena could kind of jump in on this. I have a question for all three of you, all three of the screens here, because there's 2 on Logo Cinema, by the way, too. So
no, all 4.
All 4. So yeah. I do have a question, though. In an era where Hollywood often reshapes stories to fit certain narratives, do any of you feel a pressure to soften the redemption through faith angle, the Orthodox Christian roots, or the gritty authenticity of Chicago's West Side? To Akeem's point, do any of you feel like the pressure to soften these narratives, or kind of re-emphasize, like revisioning the narratives that you've had in changing them?
No. Let me say this for the record. We had heard whispers that there was too much blood shed and lives being lost and this sort of thing, And in reality, we had no gratuitous killings, when you think about it, the success of Sinners, for instance, there
Yeah.
was lots of blood in Sinners, talking about vampires and things of this nature, So again, Hollywood took that and glamorized it. As an African American myself, I saw one black vampire back in the 70s, Blackula. You know what I'm saying? And so again,
Yeah.
that really didn't go in our community. So I mean, with all respect to Michael P. Jordan, doing a dual character, he had great success with this, but they was advertising, vampires. You know what I'm saying? We came with a measure that was true to our city, true to our streets, true to our lives, because again, I've had 5 attempts on my life, but it's by the grace of God that I'm still here. So he had a message and he had me a mission. And so again, having risen through the ranks of the 4-point hustlers in my community, I think it's imperative that we let these young brothers know Cook County is the biggest county jail in the country. When I left the streets in 1988, they had 6 divisions on California. When I returned in 2006, they had 22 divisions. And so again, all through the 80s, they had a plan that they was going to basically try to lock their way up through our community. But the expense of incarcerating a person, see, it costed $68,000 per person in the super maximum prison that I was in a year. Rather than spending $13,000 on the front end to send me to college, they'll spend $68,000 on the back end to keep me incarcerated. And so again, when you think about the essence of this story, true enough, Malik, you understand me, went through some real life struggles. He thought about poverty. He thought about honoring his parents. He thought about his friend Mike getting out the game and raising his son. Nobody I know joined the organization and said, you know what? I want to get locked up this week. I want to get shot. I want to get stabbed. I want to lose my life. That's not how I go in my hood. You know what I'm saying? People are literally clamoring for an answer. How do I the situation? Yes, sir.
I do have a question real quick, if I can interrupt just for a brief second, because there may be an audience out there that may not know, they may be naive or ignorant to the fact of this story. I do want to ask a question as if I don't know, because I just want to inform the audience this. The narrative of the story and the story that this is written on, this is somewhat partly or fully based on your story, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So Yelena and Akeem, how much of this is based on Akeem's story? And do you think that this mirrors St. Moses the Black's life? And do you think this is a not only just a good message, but also like a great portrayal, in your opinion, of St. Moses the Black?
Well, the lead character, definitely, it's based on Akeem's story. I needed a real story. Not only that, there is also another character that it's portrayed in the film that it's also sort of, we paid a tribute to a gentleman who had passed away in 1994. He was a young man, he didn't get to live. He wasn't lucky enough. So they're real people. The story is based on real people from West Side, and Akeem, you tell me, what do you feel about? I kept the story of St. Moses the Black very truthful, but Akeem can tell you how he feels about his story and how does that mirror.
Yeah, how do you feel about the story and its reflection on your life, kind of mirroring this portrayal? How do you feel about the presentation and the final product of this?
Well, to be honest with you, as I alluded to earlier, my director, my co-writer, she did a master class when it came to the portrayal, the vision, the visuals, the cinematography. I mean, again, all these things reach out and grab you. I saw myself up on the film. And to be honest with you, I don't want to show myself as being a salty and them, but when we first debuted this film in Greece, I had to get up and leave because I broke out in tears 3 times. 3 times this movie moved me to tears, because again, I saw deja vu. I saw my life. I saw my guys. I saw Saeed literally get his throat cut. And this was one of my shorties, you know what I'm saying? And Yelena was so masterful. She didn't make it in full color, whether it be gory. She was, I mean, intelligent and bright enough to put it in black and white. You know, if I'd have probably saw, you know, that particular scene in color, I don't know how I might have reacted, you know, because again, it was personal to me. And I like to show my honor to her the way she honored Saeed in this particular film. You know, this was a young man who was a part of my organization, Football and Hustlers, who rose through the ranks himself and became a chieftain. However, when the police tried to make him sell drugs, you know, he refused. And they literally came at his life. You know, and Yelena was sharp enough to pin it in such a way where it will be transparent but not offensive. You know, but the guys in Chicago, when they saw Lake Street, when they saw Central, when they saw Madison Street, people was, you know, emboldened. Yay! This is our lives right here. It's a real, true story. And what really, really made me feel great about it, it was telling about redemption. You hear all these politicians, these preachers talking about second chances, but I've lived that. I had to start my own company. I had to employ my own guys, you understand? Because again, you know, the streets ain't respecting the fact that you want a second chance. You got to get out there and make it for yourselves. So again, you know, you have people who emulate that which they see. You understand what I'm saying?
I appreciate that story. And that's extremely compelling. Yes. I do want to take a second to go back to Andrew and Zach, because the original question I proposed to, and I appreciate this. Akeem, it's so much information. It's hard to process all of this, but it's something that everybody needs to hear. The reason why it's hard to process is because there's so much information there. Not only is there so much information, but there's a whole story here that needs to be told. And I'm pretty sure that everybody, there's a lot of people that are familiar with this. It's just that they don't want to bring this on the big screen. I think that through silence, denial. But back to this, I do want to ask Logo Cinema, as both of them as a pair. I'll re-ask the question as well, too, because I do want to hear this from you both, because this is very, I would say, applicable to your mission as well, too. In an era where Hollywood often reshapes stories to fit certain narratives, did you ever feel pressure to soften the redemption through faith angle, the Orthodox Christian roots, or the gritty authenticity of daily life in the systemic reality that we face out here?
The answer is absolutely no. We do not want to soften the approach, and I really want to thank Akeem for sharing your testimony and your experience, your life experience, because not only was it edifying for me to hear, but it was also very vindicating for what me and Andrew think and believe, what needs to be done and how stories need to be told. For so long, we've kind of like, we've called some films like that, like Hallmark Christianity, or things that are too whitewashed. They're not real. They're not expressing the reality which everybody lives. And so you're kind of leading them down a false path, unfortunately. And we can really even look to the foundation of our faith, the stories that it told. They were bloody. They talked about prostitutes. They talked about mass killing. Like, there was very seemingly horrible things that happened. Yet it points us in the right direction at the end. Christ spoke with prostitutes and sinners. He dined with them. He conversed with them. But he told them at the end, go and sin no more. So there's a relationship and a conversation to be had, but at the end you're pointed in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you for saying that. And it has to be done in the right way. And from what you've been saying and from what I've seen as well, that was done well with St. Moses the Black. It was telling a real story that affected the hearts of individuals, and really, who knows how many seeds that planted for people who may not be familiar. But it was done in a way that was not gratuitous and drove people away or glorified these bad things. So that's the important distinction is how can you display and depict these things without glorifying them? And I think this is a prime example of how you can do that, and it should be done. And that's exactly the philosophy that we have when producing films on Logos Cinema, or helping to produce films, or creating our own original content as well, because those stories need to be told.
100%. And it's crazy to hear when you brought up, like, that it was too gratuitous. Like one of my favorite films that is within the same genre is Menace to Society by the Hughes brothers from the 90s. It's one of my, it is very underrated, like in terms of like how much it shows the realness of Los Angeles during that time. And when I watch Moses the Black and this is like, they feel like they're telling like the realness of that life. And so it's crazy that they were saying that the violence in Moses the Black was too gratuitous, because it's not. It could have easily been turned up, and it was handled masterfully. And as Zach was saying, like the goal with like Logos is to give a place, like a home for these films. There is hundreds of films like this that are produced overseas for the Orthodox faithful, but they even don't have a place to go. And we've been, over the past like 4 or 5 months, we've spoke with like over 200 filmmakers. Yelena, I think our content acquisitions director really well, Mr. Chris Vlasanio. Yes, I've known him since the beginning of the Zanfest, and actually one of the films that Marte talked about was in the first year of Zanfest. So that's how I knew Chris, and when I told him about this project, he was like, 100% I'm in. We're going to talk to every Orthodox filmmaker. But the fact is, there's going to be films that aren't necessarily going to be just within the church. It like the phronema, as we say in the church, is the mindset. That's the most important part. How do you tell that type of story with someone who maybe doesn't have any point of reference in the church? And that is where we want to go too, is not just having stuff based in the church, but also based on the phronema of what the church provides. And I think that is going to bring us back to telling the classic hero's journey, which has been lost in most of Hollywood. And it's fascinating for me to see that Hollywood walk away from what we know has worked for thousands and thousands of years. And I truly believe that the hero's journey, in Scripture, it says like the word of God is written on the hearts of man. Jesus Christ did the ultimate hero's journey. And that's why that story speaks to people every single time they see it.
Absolutely.
And you can see that through that redemption arc within Moses the Black as well.
And just to testify, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Who is that?
I was just going to testify to his point as a convert myself, when he was speaking about telling things from a certain mindset, but isn't overtly, Christian or Orthodox or anything like that. All of the films that I can think of that planted the seeds for me for my conversion weren't even Christian films. They weren't even about that, but they had thematic elements that were woven deeply and done well in a creative and artistic way. Which they rarely make anymore. But looking back, all of those planted seeds for me to eventually lead to my conversion and salvation. So just to his point, I'm kind of a living case of that itself, and it can be done, and it should be.
No, I think I want to thank you so much for what you're doing, and it makes me feel great to hear what you guys are saying, because I very much believe that. I mean, I've done this film, and not everyone, it's a small amount of people, but sometimes I was even criticized, the film has a few bad words or things like that. It's, as you know, it's about telling the truth. In Hollywood, even as you mentioned, we used to have a great storytelling in Hollywood, maybe many, many years ago. And there are films, and I agree with you 100%. They don't have to have a theme of a saint or a church or anything, but they are, I believe, truthful films that make you think, that make you reflect on yourself, on things, and that's the beauty of cinema. And it's great that I'm fully on board with what you're talking about, and I'm really happy to hear that. I feel that your project will be blessed. I really believe that.
I have to say also, I am really impressed with Logos, even with the short tautology that you just gave me, tutorship that you just gave me about Logos, the Greek words, and etc. I mean, when you're thinking about the Bible itself, it's basically been whitewashed, when you think about the stories of the Old Testament. Can you imagine making a movie about David and the king telling him he had to go get 1,000 foreskins. You know,
No.
can you imagine the story about the lady who ate the other lady's baby, you know, when the famine came in? And so again, you know, there are stories in the Bible that deal with cannibalism, that deal with sodomy, that deals with rape. I mean, again, you know, some hardcore messages. But when it's all said and done, they're exemplary of how people go wrong. And then the New Testament tells you how you can go right. You know?
Yep.
And so again, I look forward to seeing Logos doing some real true messages and movies from the Old Testament, you know, to let people know Jesus wasn't no punk. You know, think about it. He was in the desert 40 days, 40 nights. You know what I'm saying? The man was a carpenter. They didn't have electric saws back then. He had to literally go in there and chop wood, you know, for 30-some years before he came into his own conversion. So I look at Jesus as being a Hulk-like character. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't blue eyes and soft hands. The man, understand me again, told the devil, he said, if you cast yourself down, you know, and again, Jesus led by example of hardcore situations and how there's grace to get through it.
I think that's very important for you to talk about that. And here's the thing, though, Yelena, I want to thank you again for bringing Hakeem on board, because I just feel like we were kind of missing something else too. And Hakeem, I'm so glad that I brought you on board so that way you can say your piece and also speak on this as well too. And as the living embodiment, the example of what this film is portraying, I think that this is also a great message that we need to tell, whether it's through Logo Cinema, through Yelena, or even you. I think that all of us are united here on this front to present real, raw, compassionate, compelling stories so that the masses can hear this without being silenced. And that's why we're here today. I do have a popcorn question that I want to ask Yelena. 50 Cent came on as an executive producer through G Unit Film and Television. What was that collaboration like? How did you connect with him? What was that like?
This is another, I mean, it's the whole thing is very, it was, I believe, providential. I thought originally, like I was thinking, who else can we bring on board to you know, open the doors for us to make us have that theatrical release, to put this film, this story out there to be seen, to be heard, right? And I was talking to a friend of mine at the time, and we were thinking, well, 50 Cent would be probably a good executive producer to just kind of present the film. And there was a wishful thinking apparently on my part at that point. A lot of eyes were rolling when I was mentioning that name, you know. And but you know, ironically, after Omar Epps decided to play the lead role of Malik, and even having that beautiful lead role, which I think it was an incredibly complex character, and he did an incredible job. I had to wait for him. At first I thought, am I going to end up having like unknown playing the lead? But I had to wait for Omar. I mean, and then when he read the script, he was, I believe, right. He even told me like that he told me afterwards why he's told me that from the beginning, that why he felt God really wanted him to do this. And he felt he wanted to be part of this project. So, forgive me, I lost my train of thought. I was talking about now the
collaboration between you, me, and him.
Yeah. So what happened was, so he came on board, and now this is like, so the agent, he's represented by the same agency that 50 Cent is represented by. So the owner of the agency actually, before that, actually, my partner and husband, Alexander Spotter, said, you know, 50 is represented, because he knew that I thought 50 Cent would be the right executive producer. I said, well, that's great. Let's ask if he wants to executive produce. But then he just said, you know, I can't ask the agent. You know, usually you don't go through an agency to ask the person to, maybe you want to hire them as an actor or as a director, but to ask somebody to executive produce, it's kind of a different approach. You might have to go through a different channel. So I said, okay, well, don't bother. Now, again, I'm, you know, hearing it's never going to happen. But then like 2 days later, the owner calls and says, by the way, guys, do you think I should show the script to 50 Cent? We represent him. Maybe he'll want to executive produce.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
okay, I know where I'm getting help from. You know, I'm just thinking to the corner, you know. And
That's
then
funny.
50 Cent got on a call with me after reading the script, and thanks to my collaboration with Akeem and being part of the whole community now in West Side Chicago, I was able to talk to 50 Cent in a way where he saw that I knew what I was talking about. And I think that's what made him say, yes, I definitely want to exactly produce the movie. So this is how that happened. I mean, it was out of the left field, and like anything with the Lord, I remember our Yelena, a friend from Arizona. Akeem, you haven't met him; he's already reposed in the Lord. But he told me when I got a blessing from Man of God, he said one thing: "You have my blessing, but if it's God's will, it's going to happen." So if something is God's will, nothing can stop it, including, you know, even this film might have been suppressed, but things can definitely change.
Absolutely.
So Vic, I have to ask you a question. If somebody would have told you that 50 Cent would be working on a Christian project, would you have believed him? Would you have ever thought that this would have came to fruition in any sense of the word? Like 50 Cent represents maybe some semblances of gangster rap and even media, things like this, but Christian and 50 Cent. Do you think that this would have been a cohesive environment or?
Well, yeah, definitely. If you would have told me like 20 years ago, like, oh yeah, 50 Cent could be working on a Christian project, yeah, I definitely would have been like, not so sure about that. But people do, change and people grow and people find their way to Christ. So it seems like maybe that's what's going on with 50 Cent, probably,
Or just the story is very truthful.
Yeah.
You know, the story,
Yeah,
he
that's true,
had his
too.
own experiences in his life. I mean, I'm sure whether he says it openly or not, I know that he knows that God has given him another chance. He could have been gone when the shooting happened, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes people don't express it in obvious ways, but they carry it in their heart. And I think he was attracted by the honesty and truthfulness of the story, and the story was made to help the communities and anybody that needs change, which is pretty much all of us. But yeah, that's
piggyback on that as well. We have an example of, not only 50, but Wiz Khalifa, Quavo, Still Baby. I mean, again, having been in Yelena's presence and the way she presented and allowed them to flourish, each of them gave a heart-changing testimony about how they want to do things that's more in line with God's will, and she was bright enough to capture that on film. When the short interviews, you literally had these guys saying, listen, they want to do more meaningful things that would help the community and it will be in line and keep their souls preserved in the hereafter. Because all of us going to have to leave this earth one day, you know what I'm saying? And where you will spend eternity is essentially on you,
So, Kim, I want to ask a question. Were you in the movie at all as an extra, or did you have an appearance in the movie?
Absolutely. They were going to show
me. I had to ask.
They were going to show my time, not show me.
All right.
I'm one of the OGs in there, you know what I'm saying? I don't run like I used to. But again, it's all good. She gave me a couple of cameos. Even my wife got a cameo in there. So again,
oh, nice.
Oh, wow. So you had some lines in the movie. You were presenting some lines.
I threw a few words in there. Come on, Chief, let's roll. You'll see. When you see the
movie.
Man,
I can't wait. I haven't seen the movie, Vic. Have you seen the movie yet?
Nuh-uh. No, I haven't seen it yet.
All right. Violation.
We're going to make a unified promise to the movie.
That's right.
Yeah, I want to watch it.
I do have a question, though. So, Yelena, you assembled an incredible cast, mixing veteran actors like Omar Epps, because he just brought this up. I don't know how to say his name. Chukwudi
Iwuji played Moses the Black. Incredible actor, wonderful person. Yeah.
And then you had rappers turned actors like Wiz Khalifa, Quavo, and others. I believe, what's his name? The really tall boxer guy.
Deontay Wilder. Yes.
Deontay Wilder is in this movie. That's insane. You guys managed to get one of the best boxers in the world in this movie too. So I have a question. What was the energy on the set like? And like, what did all this feel like? All these people together, unified for this message that blends well with Orthodox themes to the masses. What was the energy on the set like with all these people?
I think everybody was, it was just a great feeling. You know, everyone believed in this. You know, there was nobody there. I think, obviously, you know, you need to get funds to make the movie, pay people, all that. But everyone really believed in this. Like Omar Epps was like, apparently, I mean, when he came on the set, I mean, Akeem can also talk about this. I knew what was going on because I'm an actor's director. I know what actors, they're really dedicated to their craft, how when they get into the role that really matters to them, they're not going to speak to anybody. So Omar Epps was like, not even, I got it, but a few people around were like, is he okay? I'm like, no, he doesn't want to speak to anybody right now. So so he can deliver the performance because it really mattered to him. Then everybody else, I think it just was from Wiz Khalifa, Skilla Baby, people just enjoy this, you know, because it was just a good energy. I think there was a blessing upon us, and I think it was felt. Do you think that, Akeem? And you were there the whole time.
I think everybody, you know what I'm saying, bought into the fact that the chief was in control. You know, she gave master classes to people one-on-one. She was hospitable enough to arrange dinner. You know what I'm saying? When guys got together and felt like we was a family. Quavo, he let me get all in his face. You know what I'm saying? Tell him how this folk on hustle thing go. You got to be grilling with it. You know, and so again, everybody bought into it. You know, it was like a family. And be honest with you, there was tears shed the day we rapped. You know, because again, we know what's going our separate ways. But we had congealed as a family under the leadership and direction of Yelena, and again, I wish I could do it all over again. It was fabulous.
So, Yelena, I have one question. I know I have questions that are off of the script now because as this goes, I now have more questions. Who'd have thunk? So, Yelena, could there possibly be a future where you and Logo Cinema are working together on a film to produce and maybe consultants in the background, something like this, and where Reginald shows up as an actor and me eating fried chicken in the background as an actor, and then cool Vic sweeping in the background as an announcer somewhere on the TV in the distant future? Do you think that this cohesive environment can possibly happen in this hypothetical future where you're working with Logo Cinema? Could that be a possibility?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's going to happen. I mean it because
yes.
Hearing what they had to say, and I believe in making more films and as they were saying, with saying stories truthfully, stories that can change lives, you know, and they're you know, as they said, you know, there's some movies there, they're supposed to be Christian, but they're whitewashed, you know, they don't really move anybody. You know, we don't want that. I'm exactly on the same page. And I have some ideas already I'll speak to them about that. Maybe we can join forces to get a couple more projects out there.
I think that this could be a monstrous project, meaning monstrous, meaning like impactful and monumental. I think that we do need to push back against culture. I myself, as a debater that debates against probably some of the best liberals in the world, Vic can attest to this, maybe even some of the worst. I think that we all have a place here. I think that all of us here are pushing back against cultural norms right now. The namesake of the podcast is Woke Autopsy. We're pushing back against this woke nonsense. Not only this, you're a warrior, Yelena. You've been in the trenches pushing back against the narratives with your storytelling experiences. Logo Cinema is there with their shields, broadswords, and everything like that, fighting in these trenches to produce and birth this project so that way they can produce your film and even present it maybe possibly in the future. Reginald, I don't want to say Reginald, Akeem over here is on the side fighting with this organization so that way the youth doesn't fall into these pitfalls and everything else. Vic here is doing the same thing, destroying people with his commentary on a lot of these debates. And I've been on his channel numerous times destroying liberals, feminists, and even Satanists on his podcast before. I think that all of us can join in one accord and maybe be in a project project in the future. But anyways, I digress. This is very informative. We're only like an hour and a half almost into this, and this is a banger podcast already. So back to Andrew and Zach, giving birth to this project. Were there any setbacks or hardships that you've seen, maybe finances or anything like that, going into this? And were there any doubts? I'm pretty sure that you got some funny stories or even situations where this didn't even probably happen.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't be doubts. It would be more and Yelena, you've probably experienced this too. When you start to produce something for the glory of God, there's a lot of blessings, but then there's a lot of struggles that happen at the same exact time, because you're now no longer just you're not going through life and just letting life happen. You're actively participating in what we would say the spiritual warfare that happens all around us. And when you become that active participant, you now become a target. And so just as if there was like incredible things that, like, as Logos grew and we met more people and we got everything in place, like literally both Zach and I at like our day jobs, both the companies ended up being like, yeah, we're doing layoffs, and like, or like something like crazy out of left field that we would have never. Yeah. And it's just been like, well, just trust in Christ. This'll come to. God will make it what it's supposed to be. God will make it happen, and just have faith. I do have to say I do have a hard stop at 12:45, Marte. But yeah, I would say no doubts. It's always been like that's my wife and I's prayer every night as we're doing our morning and evening prayers, is like, God, if this isn't meant to be, you'll make it like very clear. And that's every project we've ever done, like, have asked that same thing, and it was always super clear. And with this, we haven't had anything where it's like, nope, we're not supposed to go forward anymore with this. And if there is a roadblock, somehow it's overcome. And sometimes we don't even know how we ended up having some of the conversations we've had.
Yeah, it's been miraculous in so many different ways. And I will say, on the struggles front, this Lent has been an immense struggle for many, many reasons. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that. But many, many things have come up. And I will say, to kind of keep us grounded as well, throughout this entire process, and especially through this Lenten period, speaking of spiritual warfare, we are constantly seeking spiritual counsel from our spiritual fathers as well. Not only for personal things, but also for the project itself, and even for some of the stories that come on as well. Is this going to be harmful for people's souls, right? Are these things that we're depicting? Because there's a bit of a responsibility as a storyteller as well. Well, really, for any interaction that you have with anybody, is it's always an opportunity to show the light of Christ to someone in whatever way that might be. There's so many ways that can happen, but there is that responsibility there too, that we also have to try and keep ourselves in check. But yes, lots of struggles.
So I noticed that you've had 5 attempts on your life. Your laptop and connection has given you one. I thank you for coming back and reviving back with us. By the way, we thought we lost you, but you're back and you have a story to tell about your lost connection. Back to this. This is a very compelling podcast that we're having right now, and very entertaining. And not only is it a banger, but we have some pretty big names here. Akeem, growing up in Chicago and having this program that you have, can you talk a little bit about the program that you have?
Yes, sir. I'm be honored, and I thank you for the opportunity. As I mentioned, I'm a product of my community. I rose through the ranks of Fork on the Hustlers, and unfortunately, I had got community rich. And in 1988, it was an attempt on my life, and the other guy lost his life. And but prior to that, Cook County had been a place where you can just spend your money if you got some bad cases on you. And I'm not going to pretend that I was an angel coming up. I was one of those hitters. And so again, it finally caught up to me in 88. The judge gave me 33 years. I served the first 10 years in Cook County in the prison system, being moved from prison to prison, because again, I wasn't this small size guy right here. During that time, I was a real hawk, and I studied martial arts. And so again, I was a force to be reckoned with in prison. And I ended up in the super maximum prison the first week it opened. And I languished there for 8 years. But during those 8 years, you know, I got closer to God.
Yeah, that's the other right there.
Come back.
That's fine. So, Logo Cinema, I do want to say this. I'll give you a 8-minute heads up, and we'll do like a outro. If you guys want to do like an outro, I'll let you guys know when that happens.
All right. So again, when I was emancipated in 2006, I saw the need in my community, you know, for change, and I wanted to be the one to bring that change. And so again, there was trepidation in my mind about me putting down my guns, with my so-called opposition putting down their guns. And so my dad told me one thing that resonated with me throughout my life. He said, it don't take courage to blend into the crowd. It takes courage to stand out from the crowd. And so I took that challenge to start. It was called, my organization is called Saving Our Sons Ministries, because plainly put, when I was incarcerated, my two sons, they was 4 and 8 when I left the world. And so it was by them having mentors in their lives that they saved my son. And so I knew I was surrounded by guys who would never come home, who had sons. And I had a dream one night about this boat. It was out in the ocean and lightning was flashing above, and there was water. It's about to capsize the boat, and the boat sent up an SOS sign. And when I woke up the next morning, I asked my next door neighbor, which was Henry Bridgebond, I said, Henry, I had a dream last night about this boat, and it was being assaulted by waves and lightning, and the inhabitants sent up a sign, SOS. And I know that's a nautical sign for help. And he said, well, maybe SOS means that the boat is life. And the storm was the things that surround these people in our community with the drugs and the guns. And the kids sent up a sign that they need help. And so I came up with Saving Our Sons, SOS. And my wife and I, you know, we've been putting our feet to the street for the last 19 years, having created thousands of jobs in our community for our teenagers. I just left Springfield about 2 weeks ago, having been honored as being their keynote speaker for African American History Month. And my niece, she was the one, I gave her first job as a teenager. And now she's an executive in Springfield working with the mayor. And so again, I've seen so many lives changed. Right now, before I came and did this podcast, I was literally in a basement doing construction work. As you can see this helmet right here, doing construction work because he had a flood here in 2023. And unfortunately, President Trump held the money up for FEMA for the last 3 years. And so you had elders in my community who had mold spores in their basements, and their houses and their lives were being affected. And so they finally just released part of the money, and we got guys who had a penal experience become part of my organization, and now they're literally recreating and repairing our community.
That's awesome. And I love the compelling story as well, too. I noticed that Logo Cinema has a hard out. If you guys would like to kind of expound on your message, your purpose, and what you guys are doing and how you guys can be an anecdote and a solution to this problem, because I never want to present problems unless I have a solution. Otherwise, it's just worthless complaining, to be honest with you. I mean, we always have to have an answer to something. Yelena, her prominence in the film industry has presented a response of problematic issues that we've had, meaning like the backlash, silencing, all this. Not only do I want you to kind of answer in response to that, but I also want you to present where they can find you and also what platforms you're on and all that stuff as well, too.
No, thank you. I just want to say, like what everybody else here has said, that, you know, when you are at least trying to do anything to help somebody, or if it's meaningful from the heart, you know, that there's going to be an opposition. And we all feel that, you know, it can, especially with this film, I can tell you, you know, everything was so wonderful, and all of a sudden we all felt like it's been so difficult, not to go into details, but But I know even Akeem had his own temptations, even around with the flooding of the, of the place. I'm in Greece right now at the moment, which is great. I'm recovering, hopefully, from everything. But at one point, I asked myself, "Oh, did I do something wrong?" I even had that doubt. And thank God for Father Turbo Qualls, who was in the film playing the Orthodox priest. He told me, "Yelena, trust me, because this happened the way it happened, it's proof that you did something right." As a matter of fact, I mean, if everything was going wonderfully without any opposition, then you should be doubting. At this point, the only sin that you'll carry is if you doubt. So I with his blessing, I'm going to say that it's an uphill battle. Sometimes one feels it's felt with men of God. I was in a hospital a couple of times because of my heart issues. I mean, it's just like sometimes I feel maybe the temptation is going to be too big. I won't be able to handle it. But then, God gives us strength. You regroup and you go like, you know what? We all going to go one day. So while I'm here, I got to do my work. And as long as it's from the heart and what my brothers in Christ from Logos Cinema said, that, you have to be in check as well when you do this kind of project. I definitely feel that way. And it helped happen both times. With Man of God and with St. Moses the Black, but it was, I believe, that the blessing of a spiritual father, Yelena Paisius, and I've really pray and I try to be as humble as I can be. I can always be more, never humble enough, but I'm saying just to take time and to, you can never know 100%, but I definitely ask for the prayers and what can I say? We gotta fight. Life is a battle. In general, our whole life is a battle, and especially if we are talking about saving our soul at the end, we have to give our life to Christ and live for Him, not for ourselves, and that. It's easier said than done, but if one can really do it, then one is truly free. There is no more bondage.
Yes, that's awesome. I do want to say real quick that Logo Cinema has a hard stop in 3 minutes. They have to leave, but Yelena, we can leave you on for a little bit longer. I came a little bit longer. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your position in this space and what you're doing moving forward. And Yelena, I do want to ask about upcoming projects, things like that. But first, Logo Cinema, they do have to leave. Any last parting words, where they can find you? And is there like a mission statement you have to the public, to what you would like to let anybody else know if they have questions, comments, or criticisms?
Yeah, they can find us on all the social media platforms. Instagram, TikTok,
Facebook, X, YouTube,
all of them, logocinema.com. And come April 12th, it'll be live for signing up. And there's going to be a good amount of films. We initially thought there was only going to be around 20 or so, but it's looking like it'll be significantly higher. Closer to almost closer to 100 films available.
Oh wow!
On launch
wow,
day.
Awesome.
So that'll be. That was quite a blessing to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But it was a blessing to be with everyone and get to talk about Moses the Black, as well as like the faith side of all of this. Akeem, it was a pleasure to meet you and you hear your testimony and story. Yes. And Yelena, we'll be chatting again soon. And Marte, thank you for setting this up. And we will talk to you all later.
Sounds good. Christ is God. I'll be in talks with you all.
Christ is King.
Okay. Yes. Also King too. All right. That was them. We're going to continue on the podcast. I do have a couple questions. Vic, also, I have to leave for like 1 minute real quick. If you have any questions, you can also ask them too. But Yelena, I do want to ask a question. Moving forward, do you have any other projects as far as like orthodoxy adjacent that you plan on looking into and are going to do? Or maybe you can't talk about this. Maybe this is kind of secret. I don't know. But do you plan on continuing forward making film?
The reason I don't want to maybe talk too much about it, I feel like it's not a secret, but until things move forwards. I was like this about Men of God and Same Moses the Black. I kept it under wraps, but definitely I do. And I'm very, very glad. I'm happy that I met Logo Cinema today. I think that there's definitely going to be some collaboration there. And thank you for having them on and introducing. So I forgive me, I'm not saying now which projects, but they definitely are. And I ask for everybody's prayers for them to be fruitful if they come to tuition.
So could there be a future where it's like you're working with Ice-T next, or it's like, what are we looking at here? Like, go ahead.
I think, honestly, regardless of what certain agendas are out there, I think that people need the truth. People need peace, love, solutions to their problems. And I think the future is the light of Christ. I think the future is the truth. It's not destruction. So, sometimes you can lose a battle, but war is in God's hands. So
Absolutely.
I think that's very much the future. And I think that's why places like Logo Cinemas will flourish.
Vic, I'll be back in just a second if you can kind of carry this for just 2 minutes.
Yeah. So I have a question because I really want to watch this movie now. It sounds very compelling and interesting. But now that it's with the news that it's being like pulled from theaters and such, where can people like watch this? Like, what's the plan there?
Right now, you can see it on iTunes, Apple TV. You can see it on Amazon. You can purchase it or rent it on Amazon, Apple, YouTube Movies, Google Play. I mean, places like that, film can be accessed. So, I just heard that Amazon has some weird thing right now going on with the app. Nothing to do with us. It's just something that they have between them and Google. So even if you just have an account, it's very easy. You can go to your browser. The best is to not to go on the TV app, but go to your browser, purchase or rent a film, and then it'll play in your library. Or if you have an Apple TV or you want to go to YouTube or rent or purchase a movie, anybody can see it right now. And I encourage everybody to watch it. I think
it's a must.
It would be great.
And Yelena, I mean, again, we didn't mention about the various critics who gave us high marks with the movie. Richard Roper here in Chicago, Essence, BET. I mean, it just blows your mind. Everyone who actually took the time to see this film, put it way up here. 8.2. What's that other thing?
Yeah, audience IMDb, which is 8 out of 10, which is really high. That's
really
high. Wow.
Of course, we had some usual suspects that automatically would just slam the film just because it has anything to do with Christianity. That even one syllable that's automatically. But everybody knows that, so that's not a surprise. But I appreciate everybody's critic regardless. Even the negative. Of course, you learn from it. But it's the people really love the movie, so that's the most important. It's made for people, not for. I appreciate the critics, but we also got some great critics also from mainstream, like you say, Richard Roper in Chicago. He's from Chicago. He's one of the best critics out there, and he loved the movie.
Yeah.
So, and there's a mainstream critic, not all faith-based critics were all stellar, every one of them, from the Catholic Christian Network, from all of them. Those are really, really good critics. So I think it shows it's worth a watch, definitely. And Akeem you're from Chicago, Akeem. You can tell people,
Absolutely. I mean, again, Chicago is raising their hands and giving you accolades. I like to say on the record, what I'm saying, that we from Chicago, we really appreciate you. The word chief is an honorable term in my community, and it's not easily, adapted. But we've given Yelena, the honorary position as being our chief for this particular film, because she took time again to take us through, the steps and what we need to do to make this film a blessing to the church. And I'd like to add this one last thing. In my community, they say real recognize real. That's the mantra. And in God's word, it says, unless you're being persecuted, you would know those of his followers by how they're being persecuted and not having a real soft and blessed life. And so, again, not only do I attribute her as being a chief, but being an angel right here on earth, because she, again, her presence changed lives and changed minds. And I always have you here.
I have a question, though, too, just piggybacking off of this. So, Yelena, working with real Chicago talent and community voices like your partnership with Saving Our Sons, alongside plenty of big names, what surprised you the most about the cast embodying the story's themes of transformation?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised that people that they really embraced the story. The first person, when you talk about names, that got on board was Wiz Khalifa. What was incredible when I first met him, after he said he really wanted to do it because he felt the script was truthful and it will speak to people, which he claimed was something that was rare nowadays. That's why he really wanted to be part of this. When I met him face to face, I was kind of, because we were still in the process of, closing the funds and getting the movie on time. And, I'm sure Wiz he's the guy whose schedule is pretty busy. And I was, in my own way, I wanted to say, well, I don't know, a little bit kind of shy in the sense, I don't know exactly when this is going to happen. We were shooting for April. Maybe I might need a few more months, knowing how these things go. And what pleasantly surprised me was his response when he said, listen, I'm at the stage in my life that I do things that I believe in, not that I have to, and I feel I really have to be part of this project. And I also feel that whoever is meant to be part of this project will be part of your project, and whoever is not meant to be, they're going to fall off. And that was really nice and encouraging. And another thing that obviously what really filled my heart is working with Akeem and everybody on the West Side Chicago. I felt so much love and appreciation. And I've seen so much, of course, there's a lot of suffering there, but there's so much faith, there is so much love in the community. Community is often portrayed that it's only bad things are happening. And that's not the case. Yes, bad things do happen. And usually, we say, and we know this in the church, that devil is usually busy where his people are, that he doesn't go to places where people belong to him. Well, but when people belong to God, that's where he's very busy to cause problems. And I could feel that. I felt incredible joy while being there on Pulaski and Street and West Side Chicago. I will never forget, Akeem, when we met Angelo's son, of blessed memory now. He was 24 when I met him on the street. We ran into him. What's incredible, Reginald was telling him that his father was kind of mentioned in the film, who had passed away as well when he was young. I will never forget, he was like an angel. He was incredible, beautiful, beautiful young man. And he was a little bit kind of standoffish, like, because obviously, his father was somebody who was very well known in the community. And but then I remember Akeem right there in the middle of the hood, right? You said, when he was kind of standoffish a little bit, you said, don't worry, Angelo. This is about, you don't understand anything. This is about our Lord Jesus Christ, actually, this film.
Absolutely.
And I didn't say anything, and I was like, really moved that this is what we were talking about right here in the hood, that you get that fully. I don't have to say anything, and he then looked at me, and I was holding the booklet that had the icon of St. Moses the Black on it, and he asked me, he says, could I have that? And I said, of course you can have it. And he took it. I remember he crossed himself. I believe he's Roman. It was different, right? I think it's Catholic, Christian, obviously, and unfortunately, he lost his life. This is sad, but
Damn.
But I'm sure he's with God, losing the life that young. He's with the Lord, and what really touched me is that what Akeem told me, that his mom is still keeping that picture, that icon in his room, that he took that night, So these are real stories,
Yeah.
And people lose people there very often, but to see the courage and the faith is something that for me was just humbling, very
So,
humbling experience.
I do have a question too, going off of that, because that brings to mind another question that I have. So Akeem has a story. You just talked about a real story of somebody that lost their life and got connected with the faith. Matter of fact, the icon is still in the room that they used to inhabit. So because I also want to bridge in like a secular audience and have them interested in this. Of course, when you mention names like 50 Cent, they obviously know who that is. So I want to ask a question that's going to bridge everything together. How involved was 50 Cent creatively in the film? And did his background, along with Akeem's in the street life and entertainment influence the tones of and authenticity of the film? Did any of 50 Cent's stories or any of his input influence the film as well as Akeem's?
No, 50 Cent came on board when the script was pretty much finished. He embraced what we wrote. Because he saw that he was able, being somebody who understood the lifestyle and the world, coming himself from the streets, he knew this was real. So he embraced it. And one thing I can say, that 50 Cent on his own, I never asked him, but he posted the icon of St. Moses the Black many times on his feet.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would have never thought that somebody who's a hip hop artist, who's ingrained with hip hop, like 50 Cent is iconic in hip hop. He's not only a staple in hip hop, but he's also going to go down in history as a hip hop legend. But when you think about stories like Akeem, his story is extremely compelling. Like, you can't write this, make it up. Like, you can't just embellish any of this. Like, when he talks about the 5 attempts on his life, and let alone like his computer's 2 attempts on his connection, it's like, we think about this, we really have to, and of course I'm being funny here, but like, we really have to think about this. These stories get silenced all the time by media, all the time, unless it's glamorized by 50 Cent in music. Other than that, they usually get shunned and silenced. Meanwhile, we have an invasion in this country by Islam. We have an invasion. People talk about this whole thing with the Jays in Hollywood and all this. How do you go about moving forward after all of this controversy, with your film being silenced, with it being shunned in films, theaters, and people refunding all this, which is atrocious? How are you planning on moving forward with any of this? Do you expect this to happen next time, or do you say, screw this, I'm still going to progress as if it never happened?
I just say I will progress. I will do my work.
Yeah.
I want to. Hopefully, I like to do work to the glory of God. I say that I would like to. I'm not saying I'm doing it. I believe I'm doing it, but ultimately, His word will be last. So I will continue, because for me, maybe coming from Serbia, we're a little rebellious, kind of tough people. You know about our history. We always fought for freedom. We were even slaves for about 500 years, like Greeks under Ottoman oppression. So we appreciate those things, and we're fighters. So I when somebody knocks me down, I kind of tend to want to fight even stronger. So I'm not backing down. So
Yelena, you've had a story yourself. Actually, we talk about Akeem's, and it's crazy, it's compelling. That's Akeem's story is real life. This isn't like somebody just making up a script because it sounds cool and badass. It's an action movie. No, his story really did happen. It's just crazy. That's why we needed Akeem on board. He's incremental to this whole movement and what we're talking about here. I don't think that the podcast would be really fulfilling if we didn't have his story and his presence here. But you've also got a story of yourself fleeing from war-torn country in the past. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Well, I was 16 and a half when I left. At the time was Yugoslavia. And a few years later became 5 different countries. I just simply, I felt I had to go and hopefully maybe make a better life for myself. My father was somebody who was unjustly prosecuted. He had a lot to do with me embracing the story of the man of God, about the life of Saint Nectarius of Egina, I had some kind of a personal understanding for that story on a different level because of that persecution of somebody who just simply hasn't done anything to anybody just because they're living a righteous life. I know what that was, watching my father being persecuted because he never wanted to join a communist party. And later, I remember when I left, I remember, and at the time I didn't know anything. I did not know who Jesus Christ was, by the way. This is interesting about me. Because
really?
my parents, I grew up in the country where religion wasn't really popular, and then my parents didn't talk much about it. I always believed in God. I don't remember who talked to me about it, but I always had a strong faith. So I remember going to church. It was the Church of St. Mark in Belgrade. I was almost 17 years old, and I knew that that's it. I was going to Milan. I was going to go to New York, but I couldn't go to New York because the war started. The American embassy was shut down, so I had to go through Italy to hopefully get visa to get to the United States, which I did a year later, get it, one entrance only at the time. So I remember standing in the church, walking in, and I remember there was this huge icon of Jesus Christ on the right, to the right of the Church of St. Mark. And I simply just in my own way said, well, God, even though I did not know the name, it's interesting. I knew, I just stood there and I said, you always protected me. I'm leaving. I feel I have to go. This is my way. Maybe nobody understands it, but please watch over me. And I had something happen at that moment that I had a confirmation that my prayer was heard. And I was on my way. I was off. And that was in 1992 or 3, something like that, many, many years ago. And I can tell you that my life is full of miracles. I know what it means to live on faith. That's only on faith and nothing else. That's also what connected me to the story of Saint Nectarius, because he was all about faith. He, no matter how difficult situations were, he never gave up on his faith. And no matter what happens, that's one thing that I have, and that's what I found in West Side of Chicago. That's what I find in Akeem. People that I connect with is people that know that not just intellectually, but they've lived it. And so yes, I came. I was doing modeling at the time. Then it took me 18 years to get my papers resolved, green card. I couldn't go to the funeral of my father. I mean, it's just on and on. But I don't like to complain. This is like I just say glory to God for everything. Many times I asked, why is it so hard? But then when I've seen later some of the films I made, like Men of God, I understood that I couldn't do that if I didn't experience at least a little bit what Saint Nectarius had experienced. So if my suffering and pain is used in the service, then I'm grateful that I had to go through that. So that's all I can say.
That's a very amazing story. Also, on a very familiar note here, I have a co-host here on the show who's also suffering against oppression by governance and also a rising gas price inflation epidemic here. I don't know how he's making it through day to day. My heart goes out to him, by the way. Oh, yeah. Hey, Vic, by the way, that's what I'm talking about. So I'm surrounded by people who are dealing with hardship day to day. He is one of them. So if you guys could please say a prayer for Vic. He's, I don't know, maybe $10 next week it's going to be. So yeah, we're dealing with a lot.
Exactly.
A lot of struggling and suffering.
Those darn gas prices. Yeah, it's really getting us down,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to thank both of you for being on the podcast. I wish I could go on for like 5 more hours. There's so much to dive deep. I did want to touch on, I did want to go into Yelena's past a little bit and just ask her about this because she's very familiar with hardship from what I've read, like running from war-torn Yugoslavia, Bosnia, right? If we think about this, like this is a crazy story. One could even say that they could build a movie off of your story, let alone, I mean, they just did one with Akeem's story, but I feel like they can do a separate movie with just Akeem, not with like Moses or anything like that.
I agree, 100%.
Even just his movie, Away from St. Moses the Black, or even, the man that's in a, big state suffering from these gas prices that are attacking him with a communist governor. Like, if you're thinking about this, like, that could be a movie in itself. And all of us can relate to that. So I think when it comes to the storytelling process, you're brilliant at doing this. You're a mastermind doing this. So when Akeem talks about you being an angel on a panel, I would co-sign this. He's right to say this. And then not to mention this, Akeem's story rising to prominence and then helping raising our sons. This whole program is a blessing. We need you, Akeem, on the streets. We need you. We need more people like you on the streets. Yelena, you are a blessing to the podcast. You are a blessing to the industry. And I think that it would be good if you got in contact with Logo Cinema and then you guys worked future on the progress of projects and things like this. And maybe I can have a cameo eating fried chicken in the background. That's like one of the dreams of mine.
Chicken and waffles. Don't forget the waffles.
Waffles. Oh, okay, now you're making me hungry. You did it now. You just did it. My stomach is grumbling right now. So I want to thank both of you for being on Woke Autopsy, and it has been my pleasure, and I'm sure Vic's as well too, right, Vic?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's been a great pleasure having you on. You guys have both super interesting stories from both of you. It was an absolute pleasure hearing from both of you guys. Seriously, thank you guys.
No, thank you, Vic. Thank you, Marte.
Man, listen, you cut from that cloth, Jack. I mean, they say in the hood, you got a gift of gab. You got that gift, man. And I see them wings behind you.
Oh,
so
man.
We want to do some angelic things to you as well, my brother. Stay strong, and I appreciate you having us on.
I just need these to be some chicken wings behind me. And then we can be on somewhere. We can go somewhere if they're chicken wings. So I do want to give you an outro, Akeem. Can you tell us about your program and what it is and where people can find you?
Well, again, I'm honored to have been on your show, to have met Cool Vic. I'm gonna make me a T-shirt like that, Cool Akeem. You dig?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good.
Anyway,
I would buy one.
I'm here in Chicago on the West Side in East and West Garfield, and again, my organization is entitled Saving Our Sons Ministries Inc., and we're here to aid and assist first and foremost people who've had a penal experience who need a second chance. And we're opening up doors and avenues for them to do that and to bless our community. And I appreciate Yelena, bringing our story to the big screen. And I know God gonna have the last say. This movie is gonna do what it was created to do. Its mission is gonna go forth, and we love you. All right, Chief. Stay strong.
I love you too.
All right, Yelena, you have been a producer, director, writer, so many different hats that you wear. And you're also an Orthodox Christian, as I'm myself. I just got newly chrismated in January by the godfather of Andrew, who's a part of Logo Cinema. Small world once again. But I want you to say who you are, let people know who you are, what you do, your purpose in Orthodox Christianity as a filmmaker and director and writer, and where they can find you.
Well, I'm a writer, director, producer. We have our company Simeon Entertainment, and also a fund for films that will spread the light of Christ. Also Orthodoxy as well through the stories of saints, called Simeon Faith. And I would say I personally, it's about my films. It's not about me personally. I shy away, so I'm not really that active personally on social media. But people can look up at the social media for the film at Moses the Black Movie. That's like on Instagram, and I hope I have enough courage and strength to continue, and I would like to delegate my work. I like to hopefully work with other people in the future. I've seen these wonderful people from Logo Cinema. I will, I'm sure, be working with them. I have a feeling we're gonna be making the film about Akeem. His story is incredible. So
yeah.
And I just I feel very grateful for everything, for everyone, and just that's all. I don't know what. May it all be blessed.
Yeah, may it be blessed. That's what my spiritual father would say. Yeah, we appreciate your time on Woke Autopsy. We've had plenty of guests in the past, some celebrity guests like Mark Selbach from Deadliest Catch, star of this whole series, filming on his boat. By the way, he was filming directly from the Bering Sea, using Starlink. Me and Vic were interviewing him. It was one of the deadliest jobs on the planet. We had an interview with him. We've had pro athletes on the podcast, and we're gonna have plenty more people. I don't want to announce who's going to be the next guest. It's always a mystery to YouTube, but not to other social media. But I appreciate both of your time and your presence on the platform. Your stories are very compelling, not just like Kane's, but yours too, Yelena. I think a lot of people need to be more exposed to this movie. They need to see this movie. They need to read the message, and they need to be exposed to the gospel of Christ.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Glory to God.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. And I appreciate both of your presence.
Thank you so much.
Yelena, if you want to, Yelena, if you want to tell people one more time where they could find the movie St. Moses the Black at.
Yes,
you
you can find the movie on Amazon. You can either purchase it or rent it on Amazon, on Apple TV, iTunes, YouTube Movies, and Google Play. The film can be rented and purchased. And please go ahead and do so and support our mission, because obviously, this will help us out to continue doing our work.
And we can't go without honoring Nick Macropolis, right? Uncle Nick.
Yes, Uncle Nick. Please do so. You met
Uncle Nick. Well, again, Alex, Uncle Nick brought Center Space to Chicago. If it wouldn't have been for Uncle Nick, I never would have met Alex PCOs, and Alex wouldn't introduce me to this angel. Yelena. How do you pronounce her name? Yelena. How do you say it?
Yelena, you said it right now, or Yelena for America. I've been called Yelena. Yelena is very champion of you. She called me that way, just like that was amazing.
Peace and blessings,
and there will be no Moses the Black. It was thanks to Nick Mercopoulos Foundation, amongst other investors, but mainly thanks to Nick Mercopoulos Foundation that the movie happened. And Absolutely. I'm very grateful to Alex Pisios and Jim Mercopoulos and Jackie and Chrysula Mercopoulos, all my investors for their support.
Absolutely. It was a great thing meeting you, Marte, and Cool Vic. But unfortunately, I gotta get back to work. I love you guys.
Yeah, be safe back to work too.
Coming on, Akeem. Nice meeting you.
All right, I'm out.
Appreciate it. One last thing I'll say to the audience as well too: go out and see this movie wherever you can find this. Like she was just talking about where you could find this. They're trying to silence this movie. I believe so. From what I've read, seen, and heard, you don't have to see things to know that you see them. You can see the absence of this to know that there's possibly a market that is fighting against this film and the message that they have. So whenever you tell somebody don't do something, most likely they're more likely to do something. You ever see the rebellious spirit in people? When they're telling you don't see this film, go see this film and fight the system. Go see this film, buy it and purchase it. Anytime I tell you not to do something, you're more inclined to want to do this. Well, they're telling you not to see this movie. So be more inclined to pull out your pocketbook and purchase this movie. It's going to be well worth your time. And no, don't pirate the movie. Actually pay to go see the movie and put money back into the system that produces these movies, because we should be able to have this message presented. Yelena has given us her time, energy, and effort into this film. Let's go produce more of this, meaning like produce dollars from our pockets to go see this movie as well too. I think that this is a good monumental effort on her part to even do this. And let's promote this, because we want to see more of this good cinema out here, especially when it comes to the lives of the saints. Anyways, that is another episode of Woke Autopsy. This has been episode 7. Stay tuned next week when we have a banger podcast with a somewhat controversial guest on a controversial issue. We'll discuss it further. But anyways, I appreciate all your time, and Christ is God. Thank you, Yelena, for your time.
Thank you so much, Vic and Marte.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you, Yelena.
Nice meeting you.
So that was a pretty good podcast, man. That was good. What do you think about the whole show so far?
I thought it was a great episode. It's just crazy, man, that they're still trying to suppress this message of like redemption, because that's what it seemed. That's what I gathered from it. That it seems like Hollywood is just, they want to promote all this stuff, but they don't want to promote redemption. And it's wild that they pulled this movie for its messaging and stuff. So, like you said, it's very important that we support these movies because we need these messages out there.
Yeah, we do. It's just crazy. I was trying to talk to Akeem, and the smoke detector let me know that his sound quality was pristine where it needed to be. I didn't want to bring that up, but I was like, "Damn it!" Me and my fumbling word, we always had a message that's always away from what we're talking about. I was like, "Oh man, you had to bring up the smoke detector and then fried chicken." Oh, all right, let me stop. It just be serious. It's hard for me to do this, Vic. Sometimes. Yeah.
Hey man, I had a bite my tongue too a little bit. As soon as I heard that first chirp, I was like, "Uh-oh." I was like, "Uh-oh." And then I could just see the comments and I was like, "Oh."
I was like, "Oh man, I got to say," I wasn't even watching the comments because my moderators are probably managing the comments right now, but I was like, "Oh, I'm probably going to have to say something." And I couldn't bite my tongue. And then I was just like, "Oh, this is crazy." But when you think about this, it's like, it's really important for us to not only have a podcast with real stories, which this is what we've had, and also providing fresh new entertainment for YouTube, because I think that sometimes we can run into circles like, oh, it's another debate with, these Boits again, or it's another person. Oh, there's a new beef that's happening right now. And it's like, sometimes this can be circular. We talked about this in the past about this. And I think that sometimes when we think about it, we need new, fresh content. And how do we bring fresh new content? People that have never been prominent on YouTube, like in the way that we're having right now. Like Mark Selbach, he's not prominent on YouTube, but he's prominent on the Discovery Channel and on new series in Hollywood. He's been in some movies. Crazy enough, I had a conversation with him, and all these other voices that we're going to have on Woke Autopsy. I think that's how we change the movement, and maybe somebody else can copy off of our style from what we're introducing and then bring something fresh to YouTube, because what's going to happen is, I've seen this before. Oh, deja vu. Oh, another debate with these two again. And it's like, she gets old sometimes.
No, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think what we're doing here is new. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. And you've been bringing on a lot of great guests with a lot of great stories. I've been having a blast doing this.
Yeah, it's been. Hopefully you've been having a good time, because I was like, I would rather not be the guy that feels like I'm dragging you to like another celebrity or something or another.
No, not at all. No, not at all. Yeah.
So
it's been good.
That wrestler that I was talking to you about, he may be on the week afterwards. I'm just going to give the audience a little hint. And we're probably going to have the cage guy. I'm just going to call him the cage guy, show up with him as well, because he's not going to show up without him. But I'll talk to you in the DMs, and we'll talk about the upcoming guests and stuff. But next week, who's going to show up next week. That's going to be a fire episode.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that one personally, because especially the topic we're going to be talking about. It's a topic that I think needs to be talked about. I think he's the right guy to talk about it. So it's going to be really fun.
So the next topic that we're going to talk about with the podcast guest, everybody around the world knows who this person is. I'm not going to say who it is. Vic, you're not going to say it either, but because it has to be a surprise. It's not good unless we don't give the haters something to attack, because they know it's coming. So that's the reason why we have like syndicate secret specials all the time. Every single one. It's not just the first one. It's going to be every celebrity episode that we have moving forward. Omar Epps was a little bit too busy. His agent did give him the green light to show up, but it was either 50-50 him showing up or not. But there are other celebrities like that are we got all the time in the world to have this podcast. I actually left school early to have this and the reason why we had to have this is because in Greece, it's nighttime there. So this time work with, we do have a alternate. It would have been like Zinger Scott Harris that would have filled in with you if you can't make it. But also if I can't make it, Vic, I'm going to announce this right now. I'll give you the reins to my whole YouTube channel to like man this with all the media and all this other stuff. I trust Vic enough for him to just host it without me, with another co-host if need be, if I can't make it. So that's why we have to have co-hosts sometimes, because if I'm having an off game, he picks up. If he's having an off game, I pick up. That's why if I need to go do something, Vic will be in there. Vic is probably one of the best co-hosts that I can't think of anybody else who would be just as good or better than Vic, everybody else is trash compared to Vic, in my opinion. Like Analverse, except for Vic. Vic is a part of the Coolverse. Everything's Coolverse. Anything else besides that is Analverse when it comes to co-hosting and offering commentary. Because one of the reasons why I don't want to turn this into a Vic interview, one of the main reasons why I selected you as a co-host to man the helm with celebrities, pro athlete, future UFC fighters, hint, hint, and all these other people who are prominent in the community who have maybe controversial stories and things like that, is because not only were you a promoter in wrestling, but you offer commentary that's one of the best commentaries on debates, social issues, everything like that. And you're really good at this. And I was like, it's a no-brainer to have you as a co-host. That is why I selected you. But yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Marte. I appreciate it. Yeah, I guess I do come in handy. Like last week with Dr. Eva, when you're having the microphone mishap or whatever. The microphone mishap. So, I had to step in real quick and be like, oh, okay. But yeah, had it covered. Like I said, it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm really, really looking forward to next week. Like I said, it's a big topic that needs to be talked about. I feel like it's not being talked about enough, even though it's happening a ton. And so
too much for my blood. It's happening too much. It's not being talked about enough.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough. I'm chomping at the bit to tell him what it is, but I can't do it. I can't, Vic. I swear, Vic, I'm this close to wanting to tell them who the guest is, the guests meaning two, plural, and then what the topic is, but I'm just like, ugh, gotta save the secret for the masses.
Yeah, gotta save it for the masses, it's, you guys will tune in next week and you guys will find out and you'll be like, oh crap, they weren't lying. This is a pretty big deal and this is a pretty big topic. So yeah.
Yeah, the celebrity guest we're going to have next week is going to... They're the perfect person to talk about this issue. That is going... So there's twofer. There's the celebrity guests we're going to have on. You're going to be like, no way that they just showed up. And then you're also going to say, oh, and they're going to talk about this? What the holy crap? Like,
yeah.
So...
Yeah, but it needs to be talked about. That's the thing. Like I said, I see news stories every day about it, and it's like, why isn't this a bigger deal? So it needs to be talked about.
It's almost like it's silenced, like this film that we talked about that 50 Cent produced. It's like there's the great silencing that's happening out here right now. Like the silencing about the gas prices and Newsom's communist, governorship was never really talked about. It needs to be blown up a little bit more. We need to talk about Vic's suffering. Matter of fact, if you guys
my suffering.
If you guys could donate to the Cool Vic, Coolverse, that can help decrease the suffering through the gas prices that he's suffering. He is being inundated and attacked by liberal masses via the pump exchange, via policies and everything else via Newsom's. Help your local Vic out. What's a couple more super chats to help him out? It's going to help him out a whole lot. We can help our brother Vic out in Cali. Help him out by reducing his pain. Send in your local super chat and help this guy out.
Yeah, exactly. Sending me one $10 super chat could get me 1 gallon of gas here in California. So.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
1 gallon. It's gonna be like half a gallon in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah,
get him
exactly.
Half a gallon of gas with $10 the week after next.
Yeah, I know, right? The way it's going, it's just seriously, yeah. Send me the super chats. Help me out here in California.
So I am going to have an individual podcast on this alone, and this needs to be talked about. The gas problem, Vic. I mean, maybe I can have you on the podcast a little bit. I'm going to have it's going to be a TPN special. It's going to be Trash Panda News Network. Maybe you could be like a analyst that comes in, a coordinator for the day or something like that. You'll be my DEI hire that day. I'm also going to have Glacier Maniac is going to be on too as a panelist. We're going to talk about the gas prices rising on the podcast, on the news network. And we're going to talk about how this is kind of like the stabby jabby thing that happened, because what's happening, I'll dive into this even further, Vic, because you probably have a lot of input on this. This is reminiscent of a certain 2020 thing that happened when they were limiting movement, when they were telling people, oh, we can't do this because of you got to limit your spending to $40 in gas. They're doing this in Australia right now. This is slowly starting to move over to the States. And now all of a sudden, what are we having? Controlled movement, government overreach, things like this that are happening by corporatocracy that's happening right now. So this is such a stabby jabby thing that's happening right now, I feel like, because it's called an energy crisis. I'm pretty sure maybe you've heard this before, but that's what they're calling it, an energy crisis. Therefore, they're going to use this to limit mobility. They've shut down planes at whole airports. I think in Vietnam, they've shut down the airport, something like this. Now, all of a sudden, what does it sound like? Sounds like COVID, right? Sounds like this. So we're going to dive into this in the Trash Panda News Network special pretty soon. But of course, I'm going to get all my analytics and data. If you'd like to be a part of this, that would be cool for you to be like a commentator. But this is crazy. The response we've gotten at the pump is insane. People talking about this, and think about this. I mean, most people can't survive like a $400 emergency, let alone a flat tire happens. They're done. They're cooked. But at the gas pump, now there's more pain. We're going to dive into this a little bit further, but yeah, that'll be on the next News Network episode we have.
All right, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Depending on when you do it. Yeah. Hopefully I'll be able to come on, say a few things about it, you know?
Yeah. That'll be cool. But this has been another episode of Woke Autopsy. This is episode 7. Episode 8 is, like me and Vic said, it's going to be a banger. He knows who's going to be on. And the topic is just, wow. Vic, if you've seen like the production that I've offered here with the intro videos and all that, next week it's going to be over the top because I think that it needs to be talked about. It's not talked about enough. And I think that somebody somewhere is shoveling this underneath the carpet to where it's like, oh, it's not that bad. And also, not to divulge too much about the topic, the consequences are reduced for their side. When it like it's ridiculous. Like this is crazy. Oh, okay, let me shut my trout mouth right now. I'm just stop. Well,
gotta save it. Gotta save it for next week.
Oh my goodness, this is insane. A very controversial thing with two, I would call celebrity guests that are going to show up. Oh, gosh, can't spill the beans. Let me shut up because I'm going to snitch on myself, and that'll be bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you guys are going to want to tune into next week. It's going to be a banger.
Yeah. It's not me just trying to sell next week's episode. It's even myself. I'm just like, I can't believe I'm going to be in this episode.
Yeah.
You want to be a part of this episode. You're going to want to show up for this next episode. Trust me. And when we bring up the topic that's discussed, even with the tagline we have, Silenced by Hollywood, you can kind of guess what the topic's about. It's going to be so ambiguous, you're not going to know what it's about. But once we bring up the topic, you're going to be like, oh, crap, they're right. This is a bad thing. This needs to be discussed. And anyways, let me shut up. All right, Vic, man, it's been real. It's been fun, man. I appreciate your gracious time and presence on the podcast with these celebrity guests. And it's been fun so far. I've enjoyed the ride so far. But yeah, I look forward to next week's episode, and I'll update you further outside of this.
Hell yeah, brother. Sounds good. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Tune in next week. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a banger.
And also, by the way, let me do my little outro. I am your illustrious host, Marte, IFBB Pro Marte Reyla, still training for the Olympia to try to qualify next year. Formal debater, informal debater, and I also manage the Trash Panda News Network on the side as a fun little side project against the, PNN, who shall be debunked in the future. But moving forward with this, it's been real. I also am the host of On the Edge, does real debates in real time. I have a debate against, who is it, Circa next week?
Circa, yeah.
Circa Wednesday next week. Yeah, that's going to be a thrashing galore. The guy's smart. He's smart, but I think he's on the wrong side. That's the only problem with this. He's well-read, just on the wrong side, and maybe avoids engagement sometimes during a debate. We're going to dive into that further. But anyways, that's me, and you can find me on YouTube at On The Edge and also Instagram and X. And this is my co-host, Vic.
Yeah, and I'm Cool Vic. You could find me on YouTube at Cool Vic. Just search me up on YouTube. I'll pop up. I cover, I do commentary on debates, and just the political commentary as well. So if you enjoy that type of thing, yeah, find and subscribe to my channel.
Yeah, And with that, I hope that you guys have a safe evening. And Vic, I really feel for you at the gas pump. Send in, and I mean that, send in super chats. Maybe they can provide a buffer so that way Vic, like video games, we lose lives. Vic only has like 3 left. So at the pump, he might lose another video game life at the digital pump. If you guys can send in some coins, that'll help him earn another life at the pump so he can last a little bit longer out there. Yeah, Callie's like boss level right now at the pump. So yeah, I'm not even kidding. But that's proceeding over into our state as well, too. I hate that, by the way. I hate it so much. So
I know.
I'm going to be monetized. Matter of fact, I'm going to put in my submission to be monetized tomorrow. That's when it becomes available again. So remonetization is possible. So anyways, that's been another episode 7. Episode 8 will be next week. And I'll let you guys know when and where. Stay tuned, and we'll see you later in Christ is God.
Christ is God. See you guys later. See you guys next week.